Take out my legs on something like that. Giggle, get up, and keep running.
All right. Commissioner, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Sorry, we heard you when you first joined.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Hopefully everybody online can hear me okay. Thumbs up, Commissioner. All right. I will call to order the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for December 19th, 2024. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. And just a quick notice, the Board of Commissioners formal session schedule has been changed for the months of December and January. There will be no session next week on December 26th or on January 2nd of 2025. And the regular session schedule will resume on January 9th of 2025. I will go ahead and lead us in the flag salute. If everyone could stand, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible.
Okay, commissioners, is my microphone on? Yeah, okay. Calendar session, anything to add to calendar?
No.
I do want to suggest, we've been having some questions, issues, some things that have come up about one of our ARPA grant awards. And so since we don't have all of the information that we would need to maybe make a decision, I would suggest maybe an executive session on January 9th. I won't be here, but that's my suggestion in terms of keeping that issue calendared and on the forefront. It's up to the both of you, but that's just something I suggest, so we don't have to tackle it today.
Agreed. So I'll just check with our economic development manager. We don't have all the information we were hoping for. Is that the bottom line? Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just, whenever you guys, okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for calendar?
No.
Nope. Okay. Item D is public comment. This time period is reserved for public comment on any topic other than an agenda item, a quasi judicial land use matter, or a topic scheduled for a public hearing. I don't believe we've received any written comment, but I do have, oh, this is an agenda item. Okay. Teresa Mashowski, which agenda item are you referring to? J1. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so any other public comment from the audience or online? Please raise your virtual hand on any topic of general discussion. All right, hearing none, we will move on to item E, which is our presentation. And today we have our annual 2024 Employee Years of Service Recognition. And this is where we recognize employees that have been with the county and have served the public for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and even beyond that years of service. And also the retirements that we have had this year. And I know that I speak on behalf of the entire board when we say thank you for your service to the residents in the county and the hard work that you do every day. I know in the past 4 years, we've been through quite a roller coaster. So I just wanted to extend our thanks as a board. And we really appreciate all the work that you do. So it's our honor to recognize everyone individually. And Commissioner Starrett is going to kick us off with our 5-year awardees.
Okay. Our, in administration, Noelle Badajas Montalvo. Would you stand up so we can see what you're wearing? Because it's quite lovely today. Can't believe it's been 5 years. I remember when you showed up. It's been wonderful to have you with us. From the assessor's office, is Jay here? Jay Mescal? Megan Gaunt? From community justice, John D. Rivera? James Sherbino? From the DA's office, Michael Dolan. From IT, and don't we know him well in an emergency, and that's Jaime Pozos Reyes. Public Works, Matthew Brown. Hey, Matthew, thank you. Hey. Thank you, congratulations. Aaron Ecker. Thanks, Aaron. Mark here, Mark Lago. Oh, hey, Mark, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Jackie Blanchard Jr. Steve Harding. Thanks, Steve. From the clerk's office, Hera Warner. Thank you. Hera's been in the trenches throughout the whole election season with our clerk, Carrie Hinton, so thank you. From planning, Suzanne Richardson. Suzanne's not here. John Codiga. From HHS, Christina Liu, Tony Sanzano, Shannon Barnett, Bill McGilson, Sarah Nobiletti, Lana Otelli, Brant Von Sulin, Julie Jessy. Gassesi. That's one I didn't check on. I should have. Gassesi. Sorry, Julie. Jessica Mossgrove, Stacy Gingrich, Lindsay Dixon, Linda Vondercheck, Melissa Wong. From the Sheriff's Office, Carson Bartlett, Travis High, Zaragoza Rodriguez III, Jackie Luce. I think I got all the hard names. Kit, you're up.
Commissioner Johnston, if you want to tackle 10-year awardees.
Yeah. So mine are 10-year awardees. From Community Justice, we have Dawn Miller, Devin Mode. From Admin, we have somebody that I can't remember who this is. Mary Starrett? Starrett? Public Works, Janet Henderson. Clerk's Office, Carrie Hinton. IT, we have Diane Van Dyke. From HHS, we have Tracy Dawson, Joshua Rojas, Brittany Stanhope, Camille Tanaka, Rebecca Shiro, Deborah Aggie, Rodney Gregg, Shalene Blair, Margaret Lucia, Cheryl Rindle, Katie Alvarez, Michelle Mendoza, Genevieve Summers, Jessica Foster, Gary Hurd, Marcy Berg, Monty Tang, Carla Meyer, Sarah McGraw, Chris Walker, Elizabeth McLeod, Sean Glidden, and Tricia Fair.
Right. Commissioner Starrett has 15-year awardees.
In HHS, Kurt Cottrell, Laura Park.
Okay. And then I have the pleasure of announcing our 20-year awardees. In HHS, we have Eric Imlaw and Claudia Castro. In the Sheriff's Office, we have Russell Mead. And in the District Attorney's Office, we have Cecilia Martinez and May Chow. Congratulations and thank you. Our 25-year awardees in planning is Pat Lyle. Community Justice is Amy Kemper. In maintenance, Richard Benjamin. And in the Sheriff's Office, Doris Webster. Our 30-year awardees, we have one in planning, which is Marty Glass. And 35-year awardees in public works, we have Tammy Garvey. Thank you, Tammy. And finally, we would love to acknowledge the retirements that we have had over this past year. In community justice, we had Peggy Bannister retiring after 40 years of service to the county. In public works, Robert Reddy at 31 years. In HHS, Julie Goodwin, 31 years. Also in HHS, Jennifer Carpenter Brenna, 30 years. In planning, Marty Glass, 30 years. In community justice, Ron Jones for 27 years. Clerk's office, Anita Mills has 26 years. In the Sheriff's Office, Darren Broom has 26 years. In HHS, Stuart Stout, 24 years. Our district attorney, former district attorney Brad Berry, had 24 years of service, and we are very grateful to him for those years. Community justice, Brian Rucker, 20 years. In planning, Mark Pendergrass, 19 years of service. In the Sheriff's Office, Terry Schmidt for 16 years. In HHS, Terry Millay, 15 years. In IT, Todd Pettijohn, 10 years of service. Also in HHS, Robin Geiger at 8 years. And finally, in community justice, Bernadine Markham with 5 years of service. Thank you all very much and congratulations. And I think the awards are in HR, is that right?
Well, delivered probably next month.
Oh, deliver next month.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
perfect.
replaced the order.
Okay,
So,
sounds good.
I'll email everybody.
Check your email.
Get your swag.
The swag. That's right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item F is our department updates. There's nothing today. Item G is our work session. And we have one item on our work session, a very important item, which is review and discussion of our dog control ordinance and the proposed amendments. And we are joined with by our sheriff, Sam Elliott. Sheriff, if you want to come on up. Welcome.
Good morning.
Sheriff?
Good morning. So quite a few changes to this ordinance. It was pretty dated. Jody, I don't know if you want to kind of give us the high level overview and then we can go into details.
Sure. Bear with me a sec. Okay, so I believe the last time it was updated was back in 2005. Which is what, almost 20 years ago, I guess. So it needed some updates. I know that folks have tried to update it in the past, but it just never got through the finish line. The main push this time was really coming from the courts. The process that was outlined under our ordinance was not really something that they could follow anymore. So they had sort of jerry-rigged a process to sort of fit how they do things over there as best they could to match to our ordinance. So we needed to update the code so that everything was in compliance with all the things that needed to be in compliance with. So that was my main push. From the legal perspective, we did a lot of grammatical things. Let me see here. We got rid of the Dog Control Advisory Committee. That's no longer active. I'm not sure when that went away, to be honest. We did update the fee code, which included allowing 2- and 3-year dog licensing at discounts. Again, we reclassified how all of violations will be coded with the courts going forward. We're lining our code up with what's in statute so that it stays updated, and we don't have to do this again. If and when the statutes change, we won't have to worry about it. We added some new enforcement actions for dogs for destruction of property, failure to inoculate, unlawful tethering, and dog waste. Clarifications as to when a dog can be impounded. Our old code was pretty limited for some reason, so we added some common reasons that the deputies tend to take dogs into custody currently. If the dog's surrendered, if it requires protective custody, if it's being cited for being dangerous, menacing, if the dog's bitten a person or animal, or if it's been ordered impounded. We aligned the livestock provisions that are in our code with what's under ORS 609. So if a dog kills livestock, there's a separate section of ORSs that deals with that. So we had to align our process so that it matches with that statute.
Okay.
Court requirements were updated. Dog control fee schedule was updated, which I think Sam's going to talk more about, and then just general grammatical updates. So that's sort of an overarching thing.
Okay. So because these are amendments, if we were to vote to approve this today, it would just go into effect immediately?
So I did not submit this as an ordinance. It's just an information or a work session so that you guys can
Okay.
talk through any amendments you want to make to the amendments. And then I'll come back later.
Okay.
And you guys can decide if you want to pass this as an emergency, in which case it'll take effect immediately, or if you want to do the standard ordinance, which will be a 2-week period for approval. So first reading, second reading, and then 90 days after the second reading is when it goes into effect.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Sheriff, thoughts on the amendments? Anything that doesn't quite match with how you handle dog control?
No, I appreciate the work that
council has done on updating the code. I mean, it is a project that we've looked at several times in some of my prior discussions with you all in addressing some of the concerns with dog control specifically, with folks having more user-friendly ability to keep their dog licensed, to keep the vaccination licensed, and in taking a look at what is going on around the state. We did at least what we could readily find available. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many counties we found their fee schedule online, and we're able to kind of do a comparison to make sure that we're not drastically out of line one way or another with what other counties are doing with respect to dog control. The increases that are coming with some of the recommendations, it's really meant to simplify it and make sure that we're keeping it reasonable and realistic because the entire goal is to ensure compliance, to make sure that folks are licensing the rabies vaccination for their dog. It helps us to be able to track dogs and reunite them to owners when they are at large or running loose. And it obviously is a component of the entire program, which is the kenneling of dogs that we don't know who the owner is or when we have to impound them for a variety of reasons. My only suggestion in taking one last look at what has been recommended is the animal surrender to dog control. I would propose we just eliminate entirely any reference to cats. We haven't done anything with cats for a long time. And I couldn't even tell you the last time anybody surrendered a cat to the county. And the focus really is dog control. So I would just highlight that maybe we just eliminate any reference to cats within the dog control code. They don't get along anyway, so.
I don't know. I saw that, but I can't find it. Do you know where that is?
There were a couple, but you had scratched them out.
Yeah, so that was a holdover from the old fee schedule. I wasn't sure if it ever happens. And so if it did, I wanted you to be able to charge a fee for it. I'm fine removing it. That's up to the board.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's on the very last page under animal surrender to dog control. I think I removed all the actual references to cats
Yeah.
from the dog control though.
As far as the fee schedule goes, that isn't, we do have an increase across the board, so that would take effect as soon as
The ordinance
the
is
the
effective.
amendment, the amendments
Yeah.
to the ordinance passed.
Mhm.
Okay.
I would ask that any consideration of those increases, as part of our effort to try to get more compliance, we have worked with Homeward Bound. We did get the reminder notices going back out again. So I think we have sent reminder notices for October, November, the December. We have both reminders of upcoming expiration as well as past due notices for recently expired licenses. The initial kind of numbers show that we have seen that has generated a significant response in the number of people that are renewing licenses. But because of the fact that there was a delay and there was this pause for a period of time where those reminders were not going out, we actually did talk to Homeward Bound this week, and we have advertised essentially amnesty days all the way through February 1st. So we're giving people from essentially the beginning of this week all the way until February with no late fee, no additional requirement other than that they can come license their dog to get current through February under the existing fee schedule. So any, the increase is like $5, but I think it would be only fair that we've advertised through February 1st that we delay any implementation of the new fee schedule until after February 1 to make sure that we fulfill that commitment that we made to waive any late fees until then.
I had
That
a
makes sense.
question. I know I'd addressed this with Jody, and that has to do with the right of entry. Now, that is a law enforcement provision. That's not related to, in other words, that's just a boilerplate right of entry for any reason, and you could not be held, be subject civilly or criminally for trespass. So I had a concern about, being able to show up at somebody's property and grab the dog and go if there is a suspicion that the dog had misbehaved. So I wanted to make sure that we don't really have any wiggle room in that regard, because that's where I would like to see some wiggle room.
Well, without going deep down the road of trespass in the state of Oregon, even with concerns about, neglect or mistreatment or concerns about a dog, we still have to establish our legal authority to enter onto private property. And we would have to use one of the exceptions to the requirement to get a warrant, which would be that there's a crime occurring right now, and there's exigency to stop that crime from occurring, or we would have to utilize the option to get an administrative or a criminal search warrant to enter onto the property.
But you could basically, for instance, in terms of, let's say a dog was tethered unlawfully, or there was abuse or neglect suspicions, that would constitute the crime that was being committed, and then you could take the dog.
If we have reasonable belief that, yes, a dog is being mistreated, that there is an imminent danger or threat to the animal, we would be able to take immediate action to mitigate that,
Okay.
only to the extent that we mitigate that immediate threat.
All right, thank you.
So when I was looking at the definition of a kennel, in some places it referred to, the housing or boarding of dogs, but then in one spot it referred to grooming, like the grooming of animals. So does this encompass groomers as well? Are they required to get a license?
Let me look here. Do you remember where you saw grooming? Oh, under the definition of a commercial kennel, maybe? So if you go to 405, 0604, it's, looks like it's page 11. Defines a commercial kennel as a facility intended to operate as a business where boarding, grooming, or training services for dogs are performed for a profit. So that is an old definition. If you want to update it, I'm fine with that and just take out grooming. It does give the dog control the ability to decide when something's a kennel and when it's not. So that looks like that was sort of their added language to sort of prevent, grooming businesses from being called a commercial kennel. But we can certainly take that out. I don't
Okay.
think we'd
And
ever
then
consider that a kennel.
as a sort of a add-on to that, we have a lot of rescues, what I would call a rescue,
Mhm.
which essentially is a, long-term boarding facility, for lack of a better
Yeah.
description. So,
So those would probably fall under the non-commercial kennel definition, because it's not for profit. At least I think most of them are not for profit.
I mean, the point of licensing a boarding facility, though, is to
Yeah.
really make sure that the animals are being held and kept to a certain standard.
There is a kennel inspection that should be done annually under the commercial kennel. And it really is just meant to ensure that the facilities are adequate for the care and maintaining of the dogs. With the grooming question, really historically, the the threshold has always been, are they keeping animals overnight versus are you, dropping an animal off and having a service performed? So when Jody's talking about, that dog control makes that determination, our historic approach has always been, are they actually, caring for and keeping animals overnight as a service to the owner versus grooming or some other thing that you would drop the animal off and pick it back up later.
I think it'd be good to clean up those definitions. I didn't touch them. So I think that it'd be good to clarify what Sam just said, but also I think we need to expand on what a commercial kennel is to include rescues. Because a non-commercial kennel seems to be defined as like a residence where they just keep more than 15 dogs. So I think, yeah, I can clean that up when I bring back the actual ordinance so that it's clear what a commercial kennel is, a non-commercial kennel, and maybe we add a third definition for nonprofit rescues.
So non-commercial is, I live on a piece of property, I have 15 herding dogs to protect my livestock, but there's no commercial activity. So,
It's more, it's a facility adjacent to a private residence where a minimum of 3, maximum of 10 dogs used for hunting, herding, exhibition shows, obedience trails, guarding or protection of property. So kind of,
Okay.
yeah. It's basically when you have more than 3 dogs. So yeah, I can clean that up so that it's more clear and aligns with what sort of kennel licensing is actually occurring right now.
I mean, I don't, Sheriff, you can speak to this, but I think from my perspective, the goal is to make sure that we have some protections for commercial activities. That includes rescues in terms of safety standards and whatever inspections. I wouldn't necessarily extend that to groomers. If you have a grooming facility that doesn't house dogs overnight,
I would agree.
it's a grooming facility. And I don't know that I would necessarily include private citizens who have 5 dogs to protect their llamas as part of some type of licensing.
And looking at
Need.
it specifically talks about having a facility on the property that's adjacent. It's not just having the number of dogs, it's actually having a facility that is connected to some aspect of utilizing the dogs, whether that be showmanship or
Okay.
something else. So I think that Jody and I can probably craft something that will clarify all of those things. And the overall goal really, again, is simplification. If it's difficult for us to understand what we meant by it, certainly
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult
Right.
for the public to understand what we meant by it. And I think that we can bring something that will bring more clarity.
Okay. Commissioner Johnston, any thoughts?
Yeah, the rates that we're charging, this is last time we had a work session about this, brought up the same issue, and it seems like we still haven't quite made it to where we're making this sustainable by what we're charging. I guess at a very minimum, I'd like to see maybe some reminders go out with the postcards that say, I guess maybe a year ahead of time, that we will be on top of increasing rates, just so that we're so far behind already anyway. I don't know how we'll ever catch up to be a sustainable program, but at least, I guess, be as far ahead of it as we can to let the public know that it's not sustainable and we do need to keep increasing rates every single year.
So
Instead of go 20 years and not do anything.
yeah. So I did add one little part, or I added language so that the fee code could be updated with a board order rather than an ordinance, with the intent that the board could easily update it as needed. If you wanted to add in some sort of like a automatic increase every few years, I can do that too. I just need a number, like maybe a percentage would be easy.
I wouldn't even say automatic. I'd just say like maybe a year before. It would come before the board. It needs to be reviewed every year. But a year prior to that happening, we need to always set what we believe the increase should be. And I think like at a bare minimum, it should be a 2 or 3% increase. And even that won't cover anything. But at least it's something, and it's not zero like we've been doing for the last few years.
Yeah.
decades.
I will say this, the numbers that are in the control fees, those, I put those in. So if you want to increase them, I did the
Well, then
best.
I'd ask the sheriff then what his thoughts are, because like, so I'm just taking the basic fee of $20, it goes up to 25. That doesn't seem like enough.
Well, I would say that if we were able to facilitate compliance by dog owners in the county, if you look at historic numbers, even just back to like 2016, we were licensing over 10,000 dogs a year. And last year it was 3,000, which just tells you that I don't think dog ownership has decreased. It's just that people aren't licensing. And if we got back to just that number of 10,000 dogs being licensed, even at an average of $25 for an annual license, I think that is getting close to maintaining at least our obligations for kenneling and clerical.
Okay. I guess let's see how it goes for this year. I'd still have a base 2 or 3% increase. Part of this policy.
You want me to add in a guaranteed 3% or an annual?
I don't know that I do it guaranteed, but we need to have this discussion once a year,
Okay, so
somewhere, somehow.
I can add in language that requires the dog fee schedule to be brought in front of the board on an annual.
There.
Will that work?
Yeah.
We're just fast forwarding to May. You'll have, all of these people that have been mailed, renew, whatever, get current. We'll see what that produces. But then you have all of this other huge group of people that haven't been licensing, and I'm not sure that we have a marketing strategy for those folks. So I don't know that you would really know, even during budget discussions in May, how effective this has been. It's going to take another year or so in a consistent effort to do that.
I would agree.
So, Commissioner, it almost seems like this is something to talk about every year in budget discussions, maybe during the sheriff's presentation to say, hey, here's where we're at. Does it need to be increased?
I'm all right with that.
And I was just going to suggest that, whether it's planning, clerk, assessor, we have a number of fees that we have language that's built in. That's not necessarily that there's a discussion that happens during the budget process, but then a lot of times the departments will come forward on an annual basis with those requests to update the fee schedules.
Right.
And if it's built in there, I mean, we could do both. We could have the discussion during budget time. You would see the actual numbers, and then, the sheriff's office could bring the fee schedule forward each year as it's built into the code. That's pretty consistent with what we do for other fees in other departments.
And I think on this topic, we've talked about what is the strategy, what is the marketing of getting people to remember that while we don't go knock on doors anymore, that we do have a strategy, and whether it's social media, whether it's whatever we're going to do, because right now nobody's paying attention because they don't have to. So I think we need to get real aggressive with marketing and a sort of a public facing information campaign. And maybe we could talk about that going forward and figure out how we're going to start ginning up the licensing machine.
Well, I think, there's a lot of opportunity that we just haven't tapped into. And yes, we're utilizing social media, but not everybody's on social media. And we already have the whole entire calendar year 2025 planned out, and we have posts already generated that are scheduled to go out monthly as reminders on high traffic periods of time when we see a lot of folks on, like a Saturday morning. that are just the reminders that you are required under Oregon law to license your dog, and here's how you do it. But, our population bases are in the cities, and I think it would be very easy to create a reminder notice that we could cooperate with the municipalities and put it in, the utility bills that come from the individual cities, just as another strategy for getting the information out there. I think that certainly trying to have that wide-ranging marketing strategy of how to get the word out, and to be honest, I think a little bit of compliance or a little bit of enforcement goes a long way. When people start hearing, I mean, we've issued more citations in the last year than probably 5 years combined before that, when you're talking about dog at large, unlicensed dog without a vaccination. And I think that word starts to travel a little bit, and it's not meant to be heavy-handed in any way, but it's become such a problem. It's the only way we're going to get it back under control is through facilitation of enforcement to say, hey, we actually meant what we said, that you're required to license your dog.
And I think more of a positive spin on that is that, because sometimes people sort of recoil at here's government asking me to pay for the privilege of owning a dog, kind of a, the sort of the nanny state thing. But maybe if we make it more of, your license fees are helping us to take care of animals that have been abandoned and neglected and abused. And that message, I know, would resonate with me.
Absolutely.
And make it into a poster and put it at the vet clinics.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
On it.
Duly noted, Commissioner.
Okay. Commissioner Johnston, anything else?
I'm good. It just needs to be, I'm just super focused on the fees to make sure that we don't get into the same boat that we were the
Yeah.
last few years.
When we had our discussion before, I think we were talking $50 a license. And that was, the goal was to make this self-sufficient, self-funding. So we're halfway there, but we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
In the next couple months. I like the amnesty period. That was also something we talked about. So that's nice. Okay, so maybe have changes, edits
Yep.
done.
I will do some updates to, I've got it in my comments here. I'll add language to the, somewhere in the code where it talks about the fee schedule. I'll add language requiring it to have an annual review by the board. I will, update definitions of commercial and non-commercial kennels, and we can also touch on the rest of that section so that it aligns with what you guys are actually doing. What am I forgetting?
Remove cats.
Removing cats. I just want to clarify, you don't want me to add anything to the code about mailings, right? Licensing mailings. So that's a little bit more procedural than it is statutory.
Yeah, I think that's part of the homeward bound contract.
Okay, all right. So I think that's just that, right? Unless I'm missing anything?
Yes.
Okay, I can do that and then I'll bring it back.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And maybe the goal would be get it passed in place by February 1st, because that's when the amnesty period is over.
Yeah, if we can pass it as an emergency, that's doable. If it doesn't pass as an emergency, then it will not hit that day.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'm not necessarily concerned about having it start the 1st. I just didn't want to start it sooner than
Yeah.
the 1st.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, anything else on that topic?
No.
No?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sheriff. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Okay. Item H is our consent agenda. There's nothing today. Item I, old business, nothing today. J, other business. J1 is consideration of approval to the opening. Consideration of approval to the opening of sealed bids for tax lot R3215 AA 00400 county-owned tax foreclosed real property. And I do have a public comment on this agenda item. So Mrs. Mashowski, if you'd like to come up now. I think we'll do it. Yeah, we'll maybe do it after. Welcome. If you can please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Teresa Moshofsky. My address is 2075 Lincoln Street in Eugene, 97405.
Thank you.
So before I take your time, I want to make sure I'm talking tax lot R3215AA00400. I'm hoping that's the 0.85 acre off of Quarry Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So members of the board, good morning. So I'm here today representing my 91-year-old mother who owns the 20.22 acres at the top of Rex Hill at 14101 Northeast Quarry Road. My mom and dad bought this land in approximately 1979 and have owned it for over 45 years. I had my wedding reception somewhere near there. It is planted as a vineyard adhering to the agricultural zoning. My mom received a letter from the county recently informing her that the 0.85 acre triangle at the bottom of our land was going to be sold via sealed bid. She asked me to help her participate in that. It seems like there might be two parties that were notified about this and who both would like to own it, we being one of them. It makes sense if we are allowed to purchase this 0.85 acre triangle piece of unbuildable land, as it is at the bottom of our 20 acres and abuts our property. This would allow us to have access from below, increasing our efficiency with farming and harvesting our crop. If our neighbors are granted this 0.85 acre is not contiguous to their land. If they ever decided to sell, this additional 0.85 acre would remain an isolated island. My understanding is these same neighbors have always had an easement across our property, and we have a friendly coexistence. If we own this, we will allow an ingress and egress, requesting that our neighbors build and maintain the road with our guidelines. We would expect all changes to be compatible with our use and not detracting from our value nor interfering with our daily operations. That's really all I have to say. Thank you, and we appreciate your careful consideration on this.
Thank you. Would you mind letting us know your mother's last name?
Yes, H-O-Y,
H-O-Y.
Joanne Hoy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, unless there's any objection, we will be opening both of the sealed bids. Thumbs up? Okay.
Sure, I'm Mike Gunn. I represented the other party. I did not know we could submit public comments.
Okay, well, you're free to come up. Yes.
Okay, my name is Michael Gunn, G-U-N-N. I'm an attorney in Dundee, post office box 272.
Microphone.
Turn it on.
Yep. We got a commissioner online, so.
So Post Office Box 272 in Dundee, Michael Gunn. I represent David and Roberta Charlton.
Okay.
I've had various conversations with Mr. Burnish on this. They own property to the west. There's a property owned by the Hoy Family Trust between the old quarry property and Charlton's. And the reason this came up from Charlton's and you know, I've never seen a bid situation like this, but the reason it came up is because they tried to sell their property within the last 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
There's a road, a driveway. It's not a public road. It's a private road driveway. It's been there for eons between Quarry Road that meanders west, and it goes over Hoy's property, and that's what they've used for access. They bought this property many, many years ago. but it's not a public road. What transpired was that the buyer on their property wanted the title company to ensure access, that they had legal access to their property from Quarry Road. There's no recorded easement. It's not a public road. That deal fell through. So they contacted me. I've been in contact with Mr. Burnish. This road may or may not go over part of this property that's being tax foreclosed. That without an easement recorded from Quarry Road to their property west, they can't sell their property. They don't have legal access. So there's basically one of two things has to happen. Either they have to, maybe one or three, either they have to acquire legal ownership of this tax foreclosed property. Originally, I had approached Mr. Burnish about the county giving us selling us an easement over that property. And there's an issue because if you look at ORMAP, which is the aerial, it doesn't show that road over that property, but ORMAP isn't always accurate. So either they have to acquire ownership of that property and an easement over Hoy's property. We've already talked to Hoy about that. Or we have to acquire an easement over that property. The owner obviously is the county, it's being tax foreclosed, or we have to hire a surveyor to survey that road from Quarry Road clear to their property, which is going to cost a lot of money. And then once it's determined whose property that goes over, we either have to approach them, and if they won't sell us that easement, we have to file, in legal terms, it's called for a prescriptive easement. It's kind of tantamount to adverse possession for possession of property. But we're trying to do it in the, for lack of a better term, the least expensive manner for Charltons that won't affect adversely anybody else. So that's how this came about, why we actually bid on this. These people here, if they bought it and were willing to grant us a legal easement over that, that would solve our problems. But we're in a conundrum right now. We can't do anything because we don't have the legal access to get to the property.
I want to make sure
That's why
that,
we submitted a bid.
sure. I want to make sure we're clear though. The discussion between your clients and the Hoys has been about the easements, and it sounds like both parties are on board
I
with.
think we're reaching an agreement with Hoy's, okay?
Okay.
So I think we can get, if not, and I certainly don't want to be pessimistic. If not, I can get a prescriptive easement. I'm fairly confident through the courts. Do I want to do that? No, that's going to cost thousands of dollars to do that. But that's our last resort. But I think Hoy's and Charlton's through me can agree on this easement thing with Hoy's. Our problem is the property immediately to the northeast, which is this property that's tax foreclosed. It sounds very convoluted, it is, but Mr. Burnish can jump in on that.
Yeah, Mike's right. I mean, we've had a number of conversations. I appreciate everybody's patience. The process always takes a little bit longer than folks would like. If the board has other questions about sort of the county's interest in this property, it's adjacent to a railroad right away and does front onto Quarry Road. I've checked with Public Works. There's no interest or need to retain this parcel for any kind of right of way or access purposes for the county. So that's why we're here for the board to consider the bids that have been received from the Hoys and the Charltons. We didn't send notice to other adjacent property owners. They haven't expressed an interest. Our policy does allow for that kind of notice to be provided if the board wants to do that, depending on what we see in the bids that you hear today.
How long has the county owned the property?
It was foreclosed in the mid-'80s. It's been a long time.
Okay.
The real market value you'll see in the packet is on the tax roll at $330. So
Are we allowed to, this might be Ken Friday question, but are we allowed to add a condition to a sale we accept regarding allowing for an easement?
So I'm just going to chime in.
Yeah.
And I've done this plenty of times. If the board wants to, we could record an easement before we record a deed to whoever buys it. So that's not a problem. That's just would require a board order. The easement would probably be pretty general and not specific to a property owner. A general public access easement. While we still own the property, we still have that ability. But the second we sell it, we don't really, we could put a condition in a sale agreement, but once the property's deeded over, we don't have a whole lot of say after that.
Okay. Would that require survey work in order to record the easement?
I don't know anything about this property, so I'm kind of shooting blind here, but as long as there's a solid legal description of the road area or the area that's being used for access, that's what I should call it, then it should be fine. We would just grant the easement on that specific area.
Okay. And so the goal of the Charltons is to sell the property.
Pardon me?
The goal of your clients is to sell the property,
Right.
their
They're-
property.
They
Okay.
can't sell it without, and if I may touch on what the Assistant County Counsel said, all we need is a legal easement across that property. And I would have to work with our, I'm giving you an example, possibly the south 30 feet, the south 50 feet or 30 feet, whatever the county requires a 30-foot wide easement, I believe, on any access. As long as we have a non-exclusive easement across that property to be able to use it, as long as it's a recorded easement, and as long as, and this is obviously not your problem, as long as I can get, Hoy and us can agree on an easement, we put those two together, we can sell that property. The title company will ensure the access. It's the thing, so.
Yeah, and I still think that, how do I say this? So even if we did grant an easement, I don't think we want to hold on to this property. So just to clarify that, I know that that's really all you guys are looking for, but
Right.
we would like to sell the property because we don't want to have people driving on a road that we're liable for, or an easement access that we're then liable for. So I think that it should be a twofer
Once,
rather than,
once
one or the other.
somebody else gets ownership of that property, then for lack of a better term, I'm kind of at their mercy, you know what I'm saying? And that's
Yeah.
not a good position to be in. So, and as Christian will tell you, as Mr. Bernicek said, you can't take a prescriptive easement against a municipal governmental agency is the thing. So that legal wise, we're kind of over a barrel on that. So,
I mean, as long as they would be willing to come up with the description of the easement area, I don't
Yes.
think it'll be a hard,
yes,
it's an easy thing for the
Yes.
county to do.
we would do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like there is at least some farming activity occurring on the Hoy property. You said there's grapes there. So.
Right. I don't think Hoy's going to be a problem.
Okay, I'm just, if Charlton's also farm in some capacity, it doesn't sound like there would be
Right.
of
Right.
increased use, maybe.
Well, that Hoy's and Charlton's have both owned those properties for
Okay.
forever. Hoy's parents are the ones that bought it many years ago. And Rick and his sister Nancy are now co-trustees, but they get along together fine. So the Charltons and Hoy's.
Okay.
And I mean, this
Commission,
may go without saying, but there is an access driveway and there is a road, private road there today, and it's been there for ever.
Yeah.
And-
Problem is there's nothing recorded.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So it's not as though this is a new access. This is an existing access that at least the Charltons, it looks like, have used for a long time to get to their
Mhm.
property, and
Yes.
presumably the Hoys too to get to their farmland.
Commissioner Johnston, any questions at this point?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gunn. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shofsky, if you wanted to come up and add a few more comments.
Since that was Teresa Michalski, since that was information that just came up, I would just like to add to your comment that I'm a realtor in Lane County, so not here, but other places. I work with easements on a daily basis. They can be a real problem if they're not designed correctly. And that is why I'm asking, and I appreciate Mr. Gunn's comment, because we do have a very friendly coexistence with the Charltons. We have no intention whatsoever of not granting them an easement, but we would like to have the easement deeded to us and us to work it out with the Charltons. And the reason for that is because we know they have an intent to sell. We do not. And we have been there for over 45 years, and we'd like to pass that down through our family. Like I said, my mother's 91. My father's deceased. And so what's going to happen is the Charltons are going to get a buyer. You never know what the buyer is or who they are or what they demand. And so what we want to make sure of and control is that the easement has guidelines on it. And those guidelines can be things such as you can't park RVs or junky vehicles or have your friends come up and spend months camping on the property. And I've seen that happen. Every single example I just said has been something I've dealt with. So if we control the easement and are granted that property, we have no intention of not working with the Charltons and Mr. Gunn, if that's who it is, to grant them what they need, because we have respect for them wanting to sell their property. We want that to happen if they want that to happen. But we do want to have conditions on how that easement can be used, because once they sell it, we have no idea who the new buyers will be, and they may have a completely different agenda for that property than the Charltons, who have been our friends and neighbors for years. So that's all I wanted to say, is that's why we would really like control of that property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
We sit here together.
We like it when it's friendly.
I saw it down there at the same time submitting the bids. And
Mike.
let me, if I may.
Mr. Gunn, can you grab the mic
Oh, yeah,
so that
sorry.
our commissioner can hear you?
If I may, let me address it as this. I don't know what Charlton's property is zoned. Whatever it's zoned, whoever buys that property can use it for whatever the permitted uses are. I mean, there may be certain applications that they have to file for a particular use, or if they want a conditional use, et cetera. But I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but when a property owner says, we'll work with you and grant you an but we want conditions on it, okay? And I'm not saying that they would be unreasonable or whatever, but I'm saying, as somebody that's been in this business 40 years, I know that there are many pitfalls. Things can go south on that. I mean, an easement for access basically says it's non-exclusive. It's here's the legal description, but whatever it is, 30-foot wide easement, this legal description for ingress and egress to this property. That easement gives the servient property, the benefited property, the right to use that easement for access for whatever permitted uses, whatever legal uses there are on that property. Once you start trying to condition this easement as to what it can be used for, other than what the purpose of that was, what you do then is you start limiting your buyer pool on any kind of a sale to, you limit it because you start trying to put conditions on that property. It's basically albeit something like CCNRs for a subdivision or something like that. I mean, all Charltons want is the legal access for persons to go Quarry Road to their property, which they don't have now, even though that road's been there forever, as Mr. Burnish has said. So, but we can't, it's the same thing as somebody saying, well, we don't have a problem if you sell the property, but you're gonna have to put these conditions on that sale that a buyer can't use it for this, or this. I mean, you can't do that because you limit. A buyer that buys property can use that property for any legal use they have for that property. Now, there may be land use issues where they have to go through a permitting process or something, but it's not that we don't want to work with anybody, but we have to be able to get the legal access without any conditions imposed on there. I mean, clearly, somebody's not going to be able to use that property for an illegal purpose. So That's a standard access easement is all I'm talking about. That's what our intention was to start out with, but it went the route of the public bid or as far as the private sale is concerned. So that's why we're here. I mean, if these people buy this property, and I have no idea what they bid, et cetera, but we then, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous, we then have to depend on them to give us an easement, whether it's for money or whatever conditions, et cetera. And that puts us behind the eight ball, for lack of a better term, is what I'm saying. All we want is the legal access, and the only way for us to get it right now is to buy that property. I hope that clarifies things somewhat.
Thank you. Yes. Commissioners, any questions?
No, I'm wondering if Mr. Friday can sort of jump in here. Ken, do you mind coming up? I just have a sort of tap into your wealth of historical knowledge on these types of things, and I'm sure you've dealt with easement issues before. Can you weigh in?
Well, probably not that well, because all we do in planning is we require the 30-foot wide non-exclusive easement for ingress and egress, and that's pretty much all that we would require. We don't typically require any sort of conditions to be placed on the easement or anything like that. And so I do think this is more of a Jody and Christian question than it is for planning. I will say this property is probably in the farm zone and is probably in either an AF20 or an EF20 zoning on this. So I'm presuming it's pretty well limited.
I can't hear Christian.
Resource industrials, which,
Resource industrial.
yeah, the RA zone typically was placed whenever someone had a winery that they wanted to establish or some sort of a food processing.
So the crux of the question was putting conditions on easements, because we've done conditions on all kinds of things
Yeah.
before.
And I will say we have not done conditions on easements in planning, so.
Okay.
So I can talk to that from a legal
Yes,
perspective.
please.
We can put any condition we want on an easement. That's not really something you'd put in a planning permit. That would be something we'd put in the easement document. I don't think we want to get in between the neighboring properties on this. So it would be my recommendation that they come up with an easement that they both agree with before we sell it to either one of them. And we'll record that easement, and then whoever wins the bid will get the property.
Ms. Mashofsky, could you come up?
So I just want to clarify, I do agree with what you just said, that we are not trying to tell the Charltons what to do with their property. We have no concern about what they do on their land. They can do whatever is appropriate for the zoning. We don't care about that. But the easement does go across our property. And so if you were owners of something that somebody was using on a daily basis, you might be concerned about what some of those things are that people can do on easements. And when I say conditions, that would be something my family would have to discuss. I'm not the only family member. But for example, there's things like who's going to maintain that easement? So these are the kind of conditions I'm talking about, because if a gravel road just does not stay like a beautiful gravel road forever. Somebody has to monitor it, maintain it, make sure the gravel is there, make sure flooding isn't taking place. People coming off the highway just deciding to park their old dumpy vehicles there and leaving them. These are all things that happen on easements. And so we have been good stewards of our property for over 45 years. We have no problem at all with the Charltons. I think that's been expressed by both sides. We firmly want to adhere to having the Charltons get what they want, but we also would own that property that their easement is crossing, and we want to have some say in it. I think that seems fair.
I think that's what we're saying. If Jody said in the very beginning, between you two, you guys can go figure the easement out, come back to us. No matter who ends up with the property, the easement will be in place before it gets sold to either party. So I think we're okay. These conversations need to probably be had between the Charlestons and the Hoys.
Um,
And then we just need to agree that we're not going to sell the property until we see an easement and an agreement between the Charleston and the Hoys.
Yes, and
Just
as
like-
I've said, we've had an easement with them for decades. So, you know, that's not even something we're trying to take away.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Right. It's this little piece right here.
Right.
So Quarry Road is here. This is Hoy's, this is Charlton's. So this, if you can barely see a little road here, it looks like perhaps it touches at the very edge, but these maps are not 100% accurate either. So the existing driveway goes here, runs along the front edge here, and then presumably goes down into here. So this is Hoy's, this is Charlton, and this, I believe, is the property that the Charltons are interested in selling.
It's this piece.
This is the county-owned piece right here that's subject to the bid, and the access road.
Is there already an easement in place over the Hoy's property? Is there already an easement in place over the Hoy's property? Is there an easement in place over the Hoy's property? Is that a future plan?
Well, that's what I need to work out.
Okay, so, because this is just a part of that road. Our property is just a part of your road. Is that not right?
Boy's property.
No, the property that the county owns, that's not the entirety of this road that
that's
we're talking about. Okay.
Those two properties, those are two properties.
So you would have to have a second easement.
I've got to- hopefully Hoy and I-
I see. Okay. I get it now. Okay. That makes
I don't
sense.
think that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, and that's not our
I'm just saying.
business. I just wanted to
This-
clarify that. The starting piece. Gotcha.
Two properties we have to deal with.
Okay, so it sounds like without paying for a very expensive survey, we're going to assume that we have access issues onto our foreclosed property at the beginning. But that also then sets up the Hoy family. If you ever wanted to sell, you would have problems as well if the title company wanted to ensure access. Right, but I'm saying right now, if you wanted to sell tomorrow, you would also have a problem.
Different, so you have a different access. Right. Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay.
So
Okay, got it.
But our access comes
Is
from
what
the
it-
top of our property. This access would be at the bottom of our property, which really is where our grapes are. So it would make it, as I said, efficient and much more probably for us to harvest our crops. We want it to be neighbors and look for them as well, so.
Okay. I want to just briefly, because Commissioner Johnston probably couldn't hear that, but the Hoys have a separate access on the other end of their property. So if they were to try and sell tomorrow, it sounds like they would not have an issue with a title company saying you don't have legal access. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Okay, so Commissioner Johnston, your position is both property owners work out and come to an agreement on an easement, plan for easement, and then we would implement the easement prior to sale.
So we would have to record the easement before we record the deed. I still think we should open the bids so that that piece is settled, because that will dictate who is the servient property owner and who's the dominant in
Oh,
the.
I was thinking I would just wait on that, let them get the easement squared away first, the language on it, and then they can decide who gets the language attached to whoever buys it, right?
So whoever owns the property is going to hold all the cards. So that is, the way the easement is going to be drafted will depend on who owns the property. So it is sort
But
of,
we're not gonna sign off on it, so we're gonna choose person that should own the property, but we will not sign off on anything until they both come to us with an agreement on an easement. So at a further date, we could actually not sell it if there is no agreement, correct?
Yeah, so you could accept the bid pending resolution of an easement in satisfaction of both parties.
So really, typically what we do is it's either highest and best use, highest bid amount, but that's not really the issue here, is we're not looking for where we're going to get the win on the dollar amount, because it's negligible. So it doesn't really matter who bids what at this point. We're really just sort of now trying to work out the best easement process.
No, they would be more for direction for them, for the negotiation. They'll need to know that information to negotiate an easement.
Would that make things more complicated, or would that actually make things more even-handed? That's a split the baby type of question.
Option A is to tell them who will be the owner. Option B is to let them decide who they want to be the owner. And then we'll sell it to who they decide.
I say delay and let them see if they can figure this out over the next 2 weeks. See if they can figure out the easement, and if they can come to an agreement on who they would like to own it, I would rather go down that road. And this becomes something where Commissioner Starrett has brought up before, that we're going to be the ones picking winners and losers no matter what in this situation. So I'd like to see them come to an agreement before we say anything or open anything.
Can I ask, can you come back up so I can talk to you about, there's logistics here that we need to think about here. Are you capable of writing an easement without knowing who the dominant property owner is and who's the servient?
I'm at a miss here. Are you Hoyes? Are you representing Hoyes?
I guess.
Okay. I feel flabbergasted, because Rick told me they weren't gonna bid on this property, okay? So I'm certainly willing to talk to them. Okay, I mean, well.
I say we delay until at least a couple weeks until we have just a bit more information, because it seems to be some confusion here.
A lot of times we've actually had parties come to an agreement outside of this process, duke it out, work it out, hug it out, and then come back after you've gotten more information about who's doing what
Okay.
and what you'd like to do. And I think regardless of who the dominant property owner is, it really doesn't matter at this point. Nobody gets the upper hand. So if you guys can work it out and then come back to us with something that is workable agreeable to both parties, then the dollar amount is really,
I just want to clarify, we need to have a name to put in the easement as the dominant property owner. Otherwise, it's not an easement. So we do need to have somebody be the owner in order for the easement agreement to be recorded. So that's where we're at right now, is so we can let them go decide who they want to be the owner and then work out an easement agreement that you're both satisfied with. And then you can come back to us and we will either accept that proposal as full stop, or we'll open your bids and we'll deal with it a different way.
Can we put this, can we defer this to the first meeting in January then on the agenda?
The opening.
Get on the agenda for
Yes, I agree. Make it the soonest that we can. Don't let this delay.
The opening of the bids, that's what you're asking, or?
that? I hold off hold off
matter.
the opening of the bids until then. That's acceptable.
That's them.
We're gonna have to discuss that.
They're the ones that will decide that, and if we're both jointly doing this, then are the bids going to be accepted, the lowest minimum bid then?
So
Somebody's water bid. I felt like, I've never.
Well, it's okay. What?
I want to make sure we get this on record, so I have to have you sitting up here at the microphone, and because Commissioner Johnston can't hear what you're saying, and he is going to be a vote on this, so.
This is Mike Gunn again. As I said, I never met this lady before. I asked her if she was Nancy Hoy when she submitted the bid. That's Rick's sister. She said no. And Rick had told me, we're not going to bid on this property. So I'm a little, flabbergasted that a representative of Hoy's is here had submitted a bid, so I was not prepared for that.
Well, okay, so, I hear what you're saying, but there were 2 letters submitted by the county to 2 different property owners. You are an attorney representing one. I am not an attorney. I do not sound as official as he does because I'm not. But I represent the other property, and I'm not sure why that's a problem because we both have received letters to bid on the property. But the rules of what I read were like we submit our bid and then you'll determine, I thought, by the highest bid. That's usually how it works. I mean, at least in real estate. And so, again, I just want to say that we are not trying to, I mean, your people have a easement across our property that they've used, whether it's official or not, that's a difference. Well, it hasn't been official. That's the problem. And that's the Charlton's personal problem, is that their land was not recorded somewhere along the line. That's really not your problem, not my problem, but we're willing to help solve the problem. We are problem solvers and we're good neighbors. So we will help you solve that problem because we want to.
Can I
If I
ask
can go ahead.
who submitted both bids? Technically, who are they from?
I won't know until I open them. This is my recommendation only. Take it if you want it. Open the bids now so that the decision as to who will own this property is done. And so that's one less thing that they have to
Yes,
battle
that's
about.
right.
And make acceptance of it subject to them coming up with an
Yes.
easement agreement
Yes.
that they're both happy with. And
Yes.
that way, if they can't get there, then the acceptance isn't done.
Okay. And I just want to reiterate, as we've been through with all of these foreclosed property issues, that we have a fiduciary responsibility and a responsibility to the taxpayers of this county to make sure that we do at least cover the real market value, especially given recent Supreme Court decisions. So that is not specific to any piece of foreclosed property, but it is something that we need to consider. I'm just
I think
waiting
we're
for
gonna-
further comment, if there is any.
Well, I mean, according to the policy, this, unless the board decides it to be, this is not sort of a best and final bid process, right? We've had situations in the past where the board has opened bids and then given parties an additional opportunity to submit a subsequent bid. And just to remind the board, we have not sent notices to the other adjacent property owners. It looks like the only other adjacent property owner would likely be the Meisel Rock Company to the north. But if you want to accept one of these bids as the final bid under the policy, you can do that too.
To clarify, these were not solicited bids. To my knowledge, you both reached out to us. So
No, we received a letter from you saying that property was going to be for sale.
Yeah, Rick Hoy asked to be notified when the county decided to accept bids.
And
So,
just to make it clear, Rick Hoy is my brother.
Yeah.
So,
nonetheless, this isn't something we went out and sought,
no.
to be
I
clear
mean,
on that.
it's been this way for decades as it exists currently. And so
Okay,
when my
so-
mother received the letter from you saying it was going to be for sale, that's when she reached out to me, Mike, though that's how that happened.
So the board has basically 3 options right now. Open the bid, accept the highest one, subject to an easement agreement between the parties. Option 2 is to open the bids and then give them a chance to submit a best and final subsequent to this, which is what Christian was alluding to. Option 3 is to just delay opening the bids and let them figure out who they want to be the property owner and who they want to be the easement user. So those are the 3 options before the board right now.
I
Commissioner
I
Dunn-
believe we are past number 3. I think that this needs to be, I think that we need to open the bids today.
I mean, if it matters at all what we think, I would vote for option 1, and I don't know what you would say.
That's fine.
So we would both like option one.
Commissioner Johnston, you're about to say something.
What was the? I'm still for number 3. I want to see if they can work it out in the next 2 weeks because we can always come back and do option 2.
Well, I live out of town and I'm a very busy person and anyway.
Did they both agree to do option 1?
Yes.
Oh,
He can't see you, so we're.
that makes it easy.
Okay, then it's option 1.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open them. No going back. Okay, let's see here. How do I get in here?
You can just tear it. I put it on there for rain because it was.
And option 1 still includes that the easement's worked out before we
Yes.
transfer ownership, correct? Okay.
When we open these, there will be a motion to accept the bid, subject to their ability to negotiate an easement agreement that is satisfactory to both property owners. So don't forget that. You're going to have to say it. Okay, so the first bid is from Geneva.
That's my mom.
Okay. In the amount of $1,611.90.
Well, excuse me. So that is 10% of our bid?
Oh, sorry.
Because
You're right.
that's what the
Oh, they
rules
bid
said
six.
is
I
we-
apologize.
Yeah, the rules say we
Yes.
submit 10% in our.
I apologize.
cashier's check.
Her money order or her check, cashier's check was in the 10%. So her bid is actually $16,119.
That's correct.
$16,119
Yes.
from
Geneva? I'm not sure how to say it.
Geneva Hoy.
Geneva Hoy, who is the property owner.
Yes.
It's for Geneva J. Hoy Trust.
Okay.
Okay, so the second bid is from David R. Oh boy, and last name is Charlton. And it is a bid in amount of $2,000.
And is that 10% or is
No, that is their total
the
bid.
total? Okay. So I am going to make a motion that we accept the bid of a Mrs. Geneva Hoy for the purchase of this property, subject to an easement that is agreed to by both the Hoy property owners and the Charlton property owners.
We have a
Any
time,
further discussion or questions?
add timeline to a date certain to the motion? No.
It's up to you. I don't know how
I
long you
think we
think it's
would
going to take.
Get to it right away.
January 9th?
Okay.
Doable.
It's fine with me. I mean, the
Yeah,
ball's in your
doable,
court now,
doable.
so, yeah.
What was the time frame?
It'll be
January 9th.
brought back in front of the board for reconsideration on January 9th.
January.
Is that right? January 9th.
At the same time, 10
Same
a.m.
time, same place.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion? Wording is okay?
I don't know if there was an approval of it. You moved, but there was
No,
no
I'm just
vote.
making sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you
And
very much.
Appreciate
To
your
the
time.
extent we can help in the meantime, just
Yeah.
reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Let's regroup here. All right, item J2 is consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Yamhill County and the Yamhill Soil and Water Conservation District for the shared native and invasive plant specialist position in the not to exceed amount of $50,500 effective upon full execution through March 1st of 2025 with annual renewals unless otherwise terminated. And this position, I believe is a new position, but it's going to be funded by some of the money that we set aside for contract roadside spraying. And then also the funding that we use for some of our interns in the past. So do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any further discussion?
None.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Item J3 is consideration of approval of a revised fee schedule for the Office of Assessment and Taxation effective January 1st of 2025. I will move approval. And I just wanted to note that I truly appreciate that this county gives exemptions for veterans when it comes to these fees, and we do not charge veterans for special assessments. Any further questions on the agenda item? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did Kit?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. J4, consideration of approval of a board order and the appointment of James or Jamie Stevenson, Oregon Professional Land Surveyor Certificate number 101618 PLS, to be the full-time county surveyor effective January 1st of 2025. I will move approval. Is there any discussion?
None.
None.
Oh,
Hello.
you've been very patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a perfect segue for a new survey.
Get to work.
So much of it was much until we establish where that boundary is, right?
Yeah,
So,
we'll
I
be,
mean,
we'll be talking to you right after that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
you know what I'm
Welcome to the
saying?
job.
Opportunity for the County surveyor to go out there and survey all these foreclosed properties to avoid or to obviate these.
There you go.
situations. Yeah.
Welcome.
To my right is Jamie Stevenson. We, as you know, back in June, we got an interim surveyor by the name of Darren Haar. He's done an excellent job. His contract is up on December 31st. And so we've hired Jamie Stevenson after a couple of searches, actually. And with the requirement that the board needs to appoint him as county surveyor. And instead of having it overlap or have to move Darren Haar out, we're just asking that it be effective on January 1st. So.
Great. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here.
And I should have said, he's got 20 years of experience, a lot of it in the Midwest, but a couple of years here in Oregon now too. So well-experienced
Thank you.
surveyor.
Great. Welcome to the team.
Welcome.
All right. Did I move approval? Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All that opposed, same sign. Great.
Welcome.
Motion passes. You're hired. Thank you. First order of business is the property on Quarry Road. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Item J5 is consideration of approval in, is that right? Consideration of approval in the first reading of ordinance 939 in the matter of adopting the Yamhill County Rural Tax Exemption Code and setting the effective date. And we are joined today by our Economic Development Director, Joya Goodrum.
Welcome, Joya.
And also Jody, you wrote the ordinance. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Rural Industrial Tax Exemption Program. There are a few other counties that do this. In 2022, we considered this program. We had some pretty extensive conversations about it with our county assessor, Derek Worf. And for matters that I won't go into now, we were sort of thwarted on that effort of passing it. But I would love to say that I am very happy to see it back on the agenda in my last meeting before I am no longer a commissioner, because this is something that I feel is going to be great for the county in terms of economic development, and just happy to see it brought back. So this is, Joy, did you have a presentation that you wanted to sort of brief us on, or?
It's in your packet.
Okay.
So it's basically an update of, when the bill was passed originally in 2016, SB 1560, establishing the industrial tax exemption, authorizing cities or counties to adopt exemption for newly constructed or installed industrial improvements with cost of initial investment of at least $1 million up to $25 million. And the SIP which is the Strategic Investment Program, that is for projects greater than 25 million. So this kind of covers that smaller business and smaller investments. The qualified property must be owned or leased by the applicant and used through the final year of the exemption. So they must stay within on that property and use it through the end of the exemption. Let's see, the county or city must specify the period of 3 to 5 years in the code. It is at 3 years. And so, I would recommend that we leave it at that. Let's see, the law also provides a cap on the exemption equal to a specified percentage of real market value of the qualified property. And it provides the exemption of, sorry, I lost my place, a specified percentage of real market value. It provides the exemption shall be granted as 100% for any of 3 to 5 consecutive years. The way the code is written, and Jody, step in here at any time, is at 100% and for 3 years. And if you would like to change that, we can certainly have further conversation about that. It may not take effect unless rates of taxation of taxing districts whose governing bodies agree to it must be 75%. So 75% of the other governing bodies must also agree to the exemption, right? Okay. What else let's see, must be granted to all eligible industrial improvements, and it prohibits the stacking of exemptions or special assessments other than exemption for commercial facilities under construction. And the county or city can amend or terminate at any time. The program sunset date, it was January 2nd from the original one, and it has been moved to January 2nd of January 2nd of 2024. And so as of the 2023 legislative session, HB 2080 was passed to extend the sunset date to January 2nd, 2030. So we've got another 6 years of exemption allowable. And then there's some, basically I bullet pointed the actual things that I just read to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I don't know, Commissioner Johnston wasn't here for the discussion in 2022, but essentially, as Joy had noted, it's designed for some, sort of smaller, mid-sized employers or manufacturers who need to make improvements to property or, potentially expand their business. And it gives them a 3-year window of tax abatement to do that in, which isn't a huge window if you consider, the time it takes to make those improvements. But we did like that it was relatively short term. A lot of, it's mostly private investment, and it also requires 75% of the taxing districts to agree.
And there are
So-
hiring requirements also. So they, it's not just spend $1 million up to $25 million on your project, but you also must hire, because it is for job creation as well as growth, business growth.
And we've had other projects like that in the county where we required a certain level of new hires.
And when we were discussing with Derek, he said he could fold it into his program pretty easily, and has received support from the Marion County tax assessor as well, I think, because they already have it up and running there, and it's been fairly successful there. So
Marion has been doing this program for a while, correct?
And we have had small business owners, namely some wineries, express interest in this program. So hopefully they can still take advantage of it if it goes through.
And this is all for new construction. So it
Mhm.
can't be, we did the construction 5 years ago and
Right.
we'd like to have the abatement now.
Right. Commissioners, any questions on any of the details?
No.
Okay. I would love
Nope.
to move,
It's an ordinance, so we're
It's
gonna
an
have to read
ordinance.
it. And we're actually
gotta
on
read it.
the first reading today. So first reading will be today, second reading will have to be January 9th. And then the effective date of the ordinance itself will be
April 9th, I think.
April
we said.
9th,
April
yes,
9th.
of next
Okay.
year.
Nice.
So unless there's any objection, I'm gonna read it
By title?
by title. Okay.
Uh-oh.
In the matter of adopting the Yamhill County Rural Tax Exemption Code and setting the effective date. That's it. That's all
Okay.
she wrote.
First reading is done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joya.
And it's
Thank you.
off and running. Great. Thank you so much for bringing this forward.
Yep, you bet.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joya.
Let's see. Yeah. So you said April 9th would be the soonest it goes into?
Yeah,
effect?
the effective date will be April 9th, so 90 days after the second reading.
Perfect. All right, J6, consideration of approval of a contract between Yamhill County Sheriff's Office and MedTrust LLC for jail medical services with a not to exceed amount of $11 million. Effective January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2030, unless otherwise terminated. And we do have the sheriff here today. Just in case. This is a big enchilada to consider, but it is a multi-year contract.
I think I should probably clarify, the agenda has it listed through December 31st, 2030. It's actually December 31st, 2029. That was my mistake.
Oh.
So
Okay,
it's a 5-year contract. 2029.
so let the record show that the agenda item for J6 should read effective January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2029. Okay. All right. Okay,
Good morning again.
morning.
Morning. Morning, Captain.
So this has been a long discussion about getting to this point. As with most healthcare contracts and costs, they are increasing significantly. So we have expected to see some pretty significant increases. It looks like it's roughly 500,000 or so from what we're currently paying. I don't believe in the past we've had a multi-year, 5-year contract with these providers.
Yeah, yeah, we have.
We have for the jail.
I don't know that we've had one that
Not that
was
long.
laid out for 5 years, but at least 2 to 3. And then they've come back and were amended a handful of times over the years.
Okay. Budgetary purposes, I think it's nice to have some continuity and know what to expect, but it is going to be quite expensive for your budget. I don't know if you want to touch on that, but.
Sure. Well, I have Captain Brown here with me, obviously as the jail commander. This has really been one of our primary focuses the last few months. As you know, we're on an extension already. And the stability of having 5 years where it's spelled out, we know what to anticipate is helpful, but that does not mean it's not expensive. And some of those considerations, just last week, again, heard a presentation that over 30% of all claims to CIS right now are coming out of jail medical. So it is a high liability area for the sheriff's office and for the adults and the youth that are in juvenile detention, because this does extend services to also cover the youth in youth detention. We have looked at budgetarily the impacts that this will have. It's not something that you're going to see me coming to you in a couple of months with an add back request to be able to fulfill the contract. We're making plans and preparations to be able to address this. It is a significant increase up front in year one. It's 470,000 over the price that we're currently paying. The price that we currently have was because MedTrust came in and assumed the contract that was held by WellPath when they basically moved out of providing service in Oregon. So it is an attempt to ensure that we are retaining and recruiting great team members for MedTrust to work in the correctional facility. So that's why you see some built-in escalators to cover cost of living. And so, you know, it is a significant expense, but obviously not having appropriate healthcare in the correctional facility is a more significant expense.
Sheriff, there's been changes or potentially coming changes with billing, Medicaid and the waivers and everything. How does that impact this?
So when we put out the RFP months ago, that was one of the considerations that we made, was both that the provider needed to be able to work with us and work with whatever is imposed on the 1115 waiver program. And so that is something that MedTrust responded with, that they're able to stand that up and work with us to facilitate whatever billing may take place. And also we required them to be willing to do the medication for opiate use disorder program in the facility. And they also responded, we continue if people come in on an existing protocol, but this would be the actual inductions where we're bringing new clients in. So they did meet both of those requirements to the RFP.
Right. Okay. Commissioners, any questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, I guess then any further editorial comments before we vote?
This has been a long time coming, and
Yeah.
I feel like this will ensure that we have a medical contract in place for an extended period of time. I know there's a huge increase to the cost, but it reduces a little bit of the liability that we have on the sheriff's department. So I feel like this is a good opportunity for us to continue the partnership that we've had over the last year with the MedTrust folks and provide that adequate medical concerns that we have, you know, in the jail itself. So I hope that we can move forward with this and continue with that partnership.
Okay. Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's a big dollar amount. Commissioner Sterrett moves approval. And if there is no further discussion or questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, J7 is consideration of approval of grant agreement number 24-535 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Department of Emergency Management for the Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG, in the amount of $88,502 for the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2025. And these funds partially fund Sergeant Young's position.
Correct.
So I will move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. J8, consideration of approval of grant agreement number 24-260 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Department of Emergency Management for the State Homeland Security Grant, SHSG, in the amount of $75,000 for the period of October 1st, 2024 through September 30th of 2026. And it sounds like these funds are going to go towards the mobile command center that we have talked about on several occasions, and I believe was part of the discussion of the fairgrounds tour as well with regional directors. So this will be exciting to see some money getting put towards that.
Yes.
I will move approval. Any further discussion?
None?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. Is that,
I have J12
oh,
also.
J12. I think the next two are quick. Next three are quick. Let me just run through so we're not confusing the agenda. J9, consideration of approval of an amendment to the real estate lease between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and the Housing Authority of Yamhill County, Board Order 09-617, increasing the rent from $3,713.83 per month to $3,878.52 per month, retroactive to November 1st, 2024, and extending the lease through October 31st of 2025. Any further discussion?
None?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. J10, consideration of approval of amendment number 6 to the provider agreement between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and the Yamhill Community Care Organization, Board Order 20-457, effective January 1st, 2025 through December 31st of 2025.
Chair, this is deobligating funds, rolling funds over from fiscal year 24 to 25 and replacing funds and some new funds for alcohol and drug prevention. So I would move approval.
Is that this one or the next one? I thought that was the next one, but
Am I on,
or maybe they're related.
which one are you talking about? This is
J10.
I-10? Where are we?
Maybe they're related. I see. I just want to make sure I read that right.
Oh, yep, you're right. I am on 10, right. Correct. This is correction. Item I-10.
Oh, this one sets the rates. That's right.
Correct.
For YCCO.
So I would move approval of item I-10.
Oh.
J10.
J10.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. J11, consideration of approval of amendment number 13 to agreement number 180033 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Health Authority, Board Order 23-260 for public health services, removing $205,695.74 in funding, which is as Commissioner Sterrett just described.
Would move approval.
Okay.
Again.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. J12, consideration of approval of a grant between Yamhill County and the Criminal Justice Commission to fund jail-based medications for opioid use disorder, JMOUD program, in the amount of $242,048, effective upon full execution through December 31st, 2025, subject to final review and approval by County Counsel's office. And this is, it's new funding, additional funding that you weren't quite expecting, right?
Correct. This is
Okay.
a new program that they rolled out this year. It is
Okay.
attached to House Bill 4002 is where the funding originally came from. There was designated allocations for each county. It's separate from our deflection program. but obviously they're wanting counties, encouraging counties to stand up medication-assisted treatment for adults in custody. And so we submitted the application utilizing the dollar amounts that were already kind of specified for Yamhill County. And this will be a component of what we just talked about with our medical services.
Great. All right, I will move approval of item J12. Is there any discussion or questions?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Sheriff.
Sheriff?
Appreciate the time.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, J13 is discussion of Dayton Landing, and this was added by Commissioner Johnston.
So last night, Parks Board meeting, it's kind of coming together at last minute, but they did recommend transferring ownership of Dayton Landing. The city's been in touch with me, and we've been working out some of the minor details, but we finally made it to the point where I suppose the board probably needs to approve it, or just a consensus, I guess, that we're willing to let go of Dayton Landing. I don't know quite what the details are going to be yet. We need to see what there is for deed restrictions. I know Travis did some digging this morning, kind of hit some roadblocks, so hopefully Jody can help him out on that. But I guess initially, are we in agreement to transfer ownership of Dayton Landing to the city of Dayton?
Are you asking for a transfer, or is it a sale?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Need to find the deed. I don't know that Travis actually found the exact portion of it, and it's multiple different parcels that we acquired multiple different ways. So it's gonna, and this is all coming together within the last few days. I mean, last night, the Parks Board agreed to look at selling it to the city of Dayton. And then Travis this morning was looking up any deed restrictions, and didn't necessarily come up empty-handed, but definitely there's a lot more to it than just a deed. It's multiple transactions that we're going to have to figure out, or multiple properties.
I think process-wise, it's kind of given the green light to down this path, that there's consensus to do that, but the board wouldn't take any action unless there's a purchase and sale agreement or a transfer or something by board order. So that could be something. I think just process-wise, I think that's where we're at right now, is whether or not there's consensus to proceed down this path.
This is something we've had discussions about over the last 10 years that I've been here. And so I think there's going to be a huge difference between a sale and a transfer. So I want to make sure that, because to just approve a transfer, but there's so many different elements, as you pointed out. I would be interested in proceeding along those lines, but there's so many unknowns. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, did you say that the city took some action yesterday or recently, or was it the Parks Board?
Just reached out to me personally. Parks Board last night took action because the city reached out to me, and they're ready. I know there's been discussions in the past, but they are ready. They believe they've possibly earmarked some funds that they could purchase it with if it comes down to that, depending on what the deed restrictions are. They do have an appraisal on it that they've given to us. So we're definitely to the point where we need to figure out how to proceed and whether we're all on board with proceeding to transfer the ownership of it. I do agree that the details need to come back before us when we get to that point. And I would prefer that we don't dilly-dally too long, because they would like to get it done in January if possible. And depending on how the deeds read, I think that is a possibility.
So I mean, if there is consensus on the board for us to start working on this, then we can reach out to the attorney for the city of Dayton and make sure that they're looped in and start to have conversations about what a sale or transfer might look like. Then
Yep.
have that information to come back to the board at some point in January, as early as possible.
Yeah, and I think at this point, if it's not too much of a time vacuum, I think we just see what the deed restrictions are, come up with if there is no restriction on being able to receive monies for that property, then we come up with a price, put that all together in a purchase and sales agreement, and then get that to them for their next city council meeting.
Do we know when that is? That's fine. We can find out.
Okay.
I think that,
Who might be able to have to be the one after it. Looks like January 6th is their next city council meeting. So it'll probably have to be the one after that.
Yeah, that might be a little fast. But yeah, I mean, and then if we do have,
February 3rd would be the next.
you have some additional information. I mean, we already have that executive session tentatively scheduled for the 9th. Maybe there'll be some additional information that we can come back with and share with the board at that point.
yeah, I think anytime we've talked about this, we just wanted to ensure that the use of that park would remain open to the public.
Yep.
If there's anything that happens in the future that, for whatever reason, would shut off access, that, you know, there's something built into that where it would come back to. It's kind of like what we discussed with Crabtree.
Yep.
I mean, to the extent there are deed restrictions, they may very well be, if they're similar to Crabtree, that the
Yeah.
property just be used for public space and open space.
Yeah.
And then that deed restriction could be transferred theoretically to the city. And then if the city ever stopped using it for public access or for park purposes, then again, assuming there is a deed restriction, we haven't seen the
Right.
deed, so I don't know exactly what it says, then the property would revert back to the previous owner. But there's some statutory requirements around that as well. So we've got some digging to do to understand exactly how we hold this. And as Commissioner Johnston said, there are several parcels there, including some that the county has acquired over the years through tax foreclosure as well.
Yeah.
So we'll need to work that element into all of this.
Yeah, well, and you know, kind of along those lines, it would be nice to have it be a sale, because we have a lot of properties that we could then, you know, funnel funds into maintaining and improving.
Yep.
But I do think the park itself just belongs with the city. It's just kind of an odd, you know, where it's located and everything. But the county has put a significant amount of time and effort into trying to improve the boat launch area and deal with all of the river issues and all of that stuff. So it would be nice to actually sell it rather than transfer, but you guys will make that decision. That's
Yep.
my sense.
That's what I'm striving to sell it. And I just, you know, without knowing what the restrictions could possibly be in a deed, I just leave that open and then, you know, come back before us when we do figure out those details, and we'll make that decision then. But I am striving to sell it. There is an appraisal for it. So if it is possible, that's definitely the direction I want to go with it. The Parks Board definitely has the same concern that you brought up, that they want to make sure that it does stay open to the public and have access as a boat launch, among a few others.
Well, it sounds like there's consensus.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Onward and upward. Okay, it looks like we have J14, which is discussion of the CPRD request for legislative code amendment. And our planning director, Ken Friday, is here to answer any questions. Let's see, Commissioner Johnston, were you on the board when we first talked about this? Or was he? No, because you came in on 2023.
January.
No,
Yeah.
but you were
You were on
on,
the planning.
Newburgh urban area. What's NUMAC?
Newburgh Urban Area Management Commission.
Okay, I forgot. You were on that, Commissioner Johnston. I was on that as well.
Okay, so we don't need to recap how we got here,
No.
but we're back here. So, uh, and the issue, I'm going back to my reasoning in the past discussion, which was not only did our planning director, deem this bridge a transportation facility, right, which is not allowed in that zone, but it was sort of exacerbated by the fact that when they did their presentation and presented, the master plan of this park in this area, it had connecting trails that extended beyond the boundary of the park, which then sort of reinforced, this transportation facility. And, I think the goal of the new board, we've had a change in the CPRD board since then. Their goal is to, I believe, open up, the entire park property for use. And they believe that this bridge is necessary to do that. Their attorney, and I'd have to go back and actually watch the video, but I believe their attorney last year, or no, it was sometime this year. Their attorney made some recommendations to them in terms of, how to mitigate some of the pushback on this. And I believe they voted to approve those changes, but they haven't actually made the changes. So I'm concerned about that piece. They're asking for a code amendment. But they haven't actually modified officially their master plan. So it feels a little bit like the carts before the horse in some ways. And Ken, you had, typed up a review and sort of some of your thoughts for the commissioners. I think Commissioner Johnston, did you receive that as well?
No.
No? Okay.
I did send it by email. I don't know that it was in the packet this week, but I sent it by email a couple of weeks ago, the day after I sent it to Commissioner Sterrett. So it might be a couple weeks back.
I have it.
Okay, good.
You got it? Okay. So essentially, I'm going to just call them editorial thoughts, are that what makes the most sense is that this park is halfway in the city and it's halfway in the county. And it's in a residential zone. So it would make the most sense to request of the city or apply with the city to actually have it, to do a UGB, a boundary change and have it brought into the city. That makes the most sense. The CPRD board, at least previously, said that that would be cost prohibitive. I don't know what the cost is. I don't know if they ever assigned a cost to it. They just were speculating.
Didn't you say, on Friday, didn't you say around, where are we? think
I
it
don't
was-
know that I put a price down on it, but I believe they're thinking it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars to do that. I didn't put this in the my little write-up, but it does make me wonder if CPRD, who actually has a fair amount of money, if it's too expensive for them, what about for a citizen? But that's a whole nother discussion. So
And that would be basically $5,000 for processing fee with us.
I did put down that if the board decided to go through with the ordinance amendment, that it does require a lot of work on our department's part. And so I would have recommended putting down that they pay for the ordinance change, which is $4,930.
But the city council could basically initiate that UGB amendment themselves.
I believe so.
And so it would basically be the ball's in your court. Let the city take a run at this, and then basically, because otherwise that exception to the zoning ordinance, that's kind of a drastic move, I would think.
Yeah, and at least historically, not to guarantee what a future board might do, but historically, the commissioners have never opposed an urban growth boundary amendment by a city because it's difficult enough for the city to justify, and usually if the city feels like they've justified the UGB amendment, the board has followed suit and has approved those.
Pretty sure that was our answer originally on this, when this application came before us. Not that long ago, like a year and a half ago for the bridge.
Yeah.
And our answer was to take it to the city to,
Well, I think
yeah,
the change has been the board of CPRD. The board members have changed. And I think they're responsive to our concern over the fact that they had this master plan, which doesn't their master plan have to be approved by the planning commission?
I believe it has to be approved by the local jurisdiction, but if it's in the CPRD district, then they just have to be the ones to approve it. But they also do have to circulate it to other government agencies, and I'm really not sure that they've ever done that.
Yeah. So they had a master plan. I mean, they have one at some point, but it's, it has a plan on it that with transportation corridors or facilities or trails that would require conditional use permits because they're non-conforming uses, but they don't actually have any of those things yet. So, you can sort of see it's great to have a plan, but if your plan is a non-conforming use in most of the zones that it's going through, like show me your permits first, right? So that's been an issue. I think the current board is receptive to potentially changing that. I just don't think they have changed it yet. And if we were to proceed with a code amendment and let's say the neighbors oppose our action, are we then as a county, don't we have to defend it? So now all the burden's on us to defend something that doesn't have anything to do with us.
Yeah.
So that I don't like. It just makes the most sense from my perspective for the CPRD board to approach the city council and say, Newburgh City Council, and say, hey, let's be good partners. This part in city boundaries. So let's go that route, and then we don't have to deal with, changing these county zones. It just doesn't feel like this is proper sequential order to do this in. And I'm concerned that nobody has addressed the neighbors still. There are neighbors that live on that side of the park that were adamantly opposed to this. And I don't know that they've been addressed. And I don't feel like it's our responsibility to address them necessarily. It's CPRD and the city maybe. So those are some of the things that I would want to see before anything goes forward.
I agree.
I agree. This is the same thing, just it looks a little bit different, but it's the same answer from me. Go see if you can work with the city and have them bring it in that way.
This most recent request is interesting simply because we have talked about this. We've had numerous people concerned about, the adjacency of their property to something like this. So we've heard about it, and so I don't know what has changed. I mean, as you mentioned, the board's changed, but I think those two would just sort of, balls in their court to address this with the city.
I
It's
can
not our
clarify,
fight.
because I spoke with Steve Elzinger before, I think he's with Marion County now, before he left. So he's the one who originally proposed the legislative change. So this originally came in front of the board as a permit denial that Ken denied their permit request, came in front of the board. You upheld his denial and it went to LUBA. And then the new board at CPRD came on and withdrew that LUBA appeal. So this was Steve's way of avoiding that LUBA piece by updating our code so that the denial wasn't automatic.
Right.
So that's just the background. So that's why this is here now. Is that this is the different, this was his way of trying to get us here. Yeah.
But if somebody in the county opposes our decision to change or amend codes, there's a process.
Oh, yeah. We will have to, Steve's proposal was to change our code, and that is a whole thing.
Yeah, we'd go to the planning commission, planning commission would review it, make a recommendation, then the recommendation of the planning commission would come to the board. And in this, we would be sending out notice to neighboring property owners about this and interested parties. So we would be engaging with the homeowners association, I presume, and with CPRD. So the language then, if it's adopted by the board, could be appealed. So there is a whole process there. And then if it is not appealed and the language is changed, then there would be a conditional use application made or an opportunity for an opponent to request a hearing before the planning commission, and any decision made by the planning commission then could then be appealed to the board. So.
This is basically a discussion, so we're just looking for consensus. We don't need any particular vote, I'm guessing. Consensus to basically respond to, I believe it's Justin who wrote the letter to us.
I think Justin followed up with an email. The original letter was from Steve Elzinger. It's a little unorthodox to have what is essentially an applicant propose a legislative code amendment. So this is sort of new terrain, at least for me. I think what's before the board right now is if you want to do as Steve is requesting in his letter, you'd make that directive to Ken to start that process. If you don't, then what you can do is just on the record for my sake, tell the reasons why, and then I can convey that to whoever replaced Steve. It might be Anders.
Justin?
Justin,
Yeah.
okay. I can convey that to their attorney, the reasons why.
Okay, but again, that's a board action.
It
could
doesn't
be
have to be, you can,
consensus.
Can be
just,
consensus.
yeah,
Okay. That would be my recommendation.
the latter or the former.
Which one? The
Do you want to,
no proceed and notify them of why.
Right.
okay, for the latter? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and
I
just,
agree.
so I'm clear, the reasons why we're declining are,
Well,
the-
I mean, I'm only speaking for myself. I still think that the UGB boundary changes makes the most sense.
okay, so that's,
Mhm.
okay.
You
So
know,
we'd prefer they went through,
City council.
Worked with the
I
city.
don't remember which.
Newburgh.
Newburgh, okay.
Newburgh. And then, I would want to see an updated master plan for
Okay.
CPRD that has actually been approved and passed by the board. I
Okay.
don't think that they've done that.
Okay. And that's good enough. I just wanted some direction to give to Justin, I guess, on next steps.
So Um, so like I said, I think this is going to come back before this body at some point in some fashion, because I think the new board, or current board of CPRD recognized that they had an issue with, you know, the bridge being perceived or treated as though it's a transportation facility versus like a park facility. And so I believe they're all on board with some of those adjustments. I just haven't seen it formally. So they may come back and formally show you, you know, we've made these adjustments. Here you go. And at that point, you know, you guys can make a decision. I think they're trying to be responsive to our initial concerns. I don't see enough like concrete, yes, we've changed this, yes, we've changed that. So, and it would be really nice to hear what the Newburgh City Council, like, have they made a formal proposal to them to be partners and potentially get this done for a lot less money? I don't know. So I know that the city council there cares about the park and the success of the park as well. So yeah, is that enough info? Okay. Okay. All right. Any further comments, questions? No? Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
So let's see, is that the last item? I'll make sure my
Yeah.
my agenda's up to date. Item K is public hearings. There's nothing today, and that leaves us with announcements.
This is your last meeting, and it's really hard because you've been great to work with, and you've been a real asset to this community in terms of how hard you've worked and how you, you know, you took a lot of slings and arrows, but you really just always held to your convictions, and you had the best interests of this county and people at heart, and you're going to be missed, and I don't know how anyone can fill your shoes. And it's going to be really hard to look over and not see you there. So I just want to tell you how valuable I think you've been to this body, and how much you're loved and missed.
Thank
already.
you. I should have gone first, making me cry. I want to thank our staff. We've Christian, Carolina, and a little bit less time, Jody. Just everything that we've been through over the past 4 years feels like a roller coaster. I mean, things that I don't think you guys ever anticipated. We certainly didn't. COVID and school closures and a union strike and wildfires and just, all of these things. And you do sort of develop a camaraderie when you work together like that. And I just really appreciate all of the hard work and just long hours. I mean, we see you put it in, and just really value your contribution to the county. It's been an honor to work with all of you. So I'm going to miss that. And Kit, Commissioner Johnston, I wish you were here. Thank you for no palm trees in the background, but you did miss a 60-degree day yesterday. It was 60.
No.
Yes,
It was t-shirt weather. So there.
Well, I won't show you the palm trees on the other side there.
But it's been an honor to work with you. It's been so much fun. You're just one of the most fun commissioners I've ever met, and your work ethic matches that. And this county is so blessed to have you. And I can't wait to see how you do as chair. Hopefully you're chair. That's the plan this coming year. And it'll be fun to watch you lead the county. And I have all the faith in the world that our county is in great hands. That includes our other elected officials, our, assessor, our clerk, our sheriff. They're all top-notch people. So the county's in great hands. And Commissioner Starrett, last but not least, I just, I came into office and I knew that you were going to hold my feet to the fire when it came to conservative values, because I knew you were tough. And I think that one of the things that has impressed me the most is that there's this misconception in the state of Oregon that's fueled by the media and it's fueled by political operatives. And this misconception is that conservatives are sort of cold and heartless people, right? We don't care about the vulnerable populations. And you have absolutely shattered that narrative. And you've broken the mold when it comes to that. I'm so impressed with how you have served this county for a decade. It's been a decade. And we have benefited so much from your leadership. And, as I said, when I came in, I knew you were tough, but man, you were tested during COVID. We were all tested, but you were really tested and you never flinched. And you were that backup that I needed. You gave me the confidence to make it through that time. It was really hard. We know how hard it is. Nobody will ever know how hard that is, but we know. So I have that shared experience with you and I won't ever forget it. And I've learned so much from you. And just on a personal level, I adore you and love you and your family. And you are a part of my family forever. So thank you for how you've served the county. Now I gotta close. This is so hard. And as we're thanking people for service, I do also want to acknowledge our state senator, Brian Boquist, who has also served for a very, very long time and has also been a mentor to me. I have never seen someone serve so effectively that ends his emails with government serves government as he serves in the government. And it's just, he's been so principled and so consistent in his defense of constitutional rights and liberties. And I want to extend my thanks to Senator Boquist as he's on his way out and into retirement. So, but with that, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you enjoy time with family and your loved ones, and that's the most important thing. So
We love you.
thank you.
We're going to miss you a lot.
Appreciate that. All right. Anything else for the good of the order with our last meeting?
I'll just say, just really quickly with our last meeting, I'm just going to give an update on, because of course, a major project and I'm with OMI. Pleased to say we crossed a major milestone. We got the financing. So we're on schedule to close next week. So things are looking good. It's coming together. Wanted to share that with the board because, we don't get
Good
together
news.
again for a while.
Yeah.
So.
We're really excited for that transition. Excited for our staff and the community. The reaction from the community has been so positive so far. So that'll be awesome. Okay. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will adjourn the Yamaha County Board of Commissioners formal session for December 19th, 2024. It is